was great. Thank you. Okay. Can we go to the first slide first? Okay. Greetings, and thank you so much for joining us. My name is Emil Kadam, and I'm joined today by my fellow peer advocates, Mahal Miles, Sarah Clampett, and Shayla Rao. In this presentation, we will introduce our peer advocacy program at Oregon State University. We will start with a brief introduction, then we will discuss the main processes that are involved in peer advocacy. After that, we will engage you in a peer advocacy workshop. Next, we will present our data and marketing strategies. Peer advocacy is a program within the Office of Student Advocacy. The services we provide at the Office of Student Advocacy embody the academic integrity values of honesty, trust, fairness, respect, responsibility, and courage. Every year, 1 in 25 students is accused of academic misconduct. This is about 800 people accused of academic misconduct. The Office of Student Advocacy has helped about 400 people through its peer advocacy program. Having identified that so many students have gone through this process, the Office of Student Advocacy has created the Peer Advocacy Program, and that program consists of the data we use and the advocacy and marketing strategies we utilize to fully help and support students. Now that we have introduced the scope of the academic misconduct issue, we will show you how we work. Our peer advocacy program was created by students for students. The primary objective of the program is to support students that are through navigating on-campus conflicts and processes. Peer advocates work one-on-one with students to provide services, including identifying campus resources, connecting with off-campus services, communicating with professors and faculty, and problem-solving challenges that arise. We do not provide legal advice or psychological counseling. Additionally, we are held to the same confidentiality policy as professional staff. The goal of peer advocacy is to provide individualized, peer-based support to students at Oregon State University. We are always on the student's side. Person-centered advocacy is achieved by maintaining a vision of what it means to advocate throughout our hiring, training, and work. Our team looks for potential hires that are able to practice empathy. To us, this means respecting the student's autonomy while providing apt emotional and social support throughout the difficult process. Our recruitment processes place an emphasis on the need of implementing cultural complexity. We typically promote PAs from interns and support staff within our office because they have familiarity with how our program functions. Peer advocate interns have the opportunity to familiarize themselves with campus processes and how peer advocacy works before entering training. Peer advocates complete a thorough formal training to improve empathetic listening, motivational interviewing, and the importance of working across differences. This training typically stretches across a 3-week period. Established peer advocates, with the support of professional staff, familiarize trainees through the various processes peer advocates serve. This entails discussing code of conduct violations, case studies, and so forth. PAs work on refining what it means to have engaged listening skills and to practice assisting students while not speaking for them. Our website also shows how peer advocates assist with a variety of cases listed in the University Code of Conduct. For example, as a peer advocate, I often help students navigate first-time academic misconduct cases and register petitions. Peer advocates do not take cases that are second or third time accusations. Title IX issues, or take high stakes cases with the understanding that these sort of cases would be an emotional and mental burden full-time students do not have the bandwidth for.
Peer advocates listen for the issue, identify relevant policy, develop options, and make a plan for each case. Here's an example of how peer advocacy at work. This slide illustrates the academic misconduct process on our campus. We actually created this process map, we call it a one-pager, and we share it with students when we meet. We find that this visual aid makes it easier to understand the process. You'll see that the process begins when the instructor submits a report via web form. Then students receive an automated message. From the student's perspective, this message may feel overwhelming. It might also feel like spam. Students often contact us when they receive this, and we help them to understand it. The next step for the student is to meet with a hearing officer. As peer advocates, we join students at these meetings. We don't speak at the meeting other than to introduce ourselves and occasionally to ask questions. We might also pause the meeting to make sure the student feels supported and understands what's happening. We encourage students to use this meeting to listen and learn about the accusation and the academic misconduct process. Students shouldn't feel any pressure to defend themselves. Our process allows for students to respond in writing after meeting with a hearing officer. This is a great opportunity for students to take time to decide how they want to respond. Some may want to take responsibility immediately and move forward. Others, however, may wish to offer their own evidence or explanation. As peer advocates, we support students with any option they choose. We help them brainstorm an outline of their statement, and we're available to read over drafts and offer suggestions. What we find is that when a student is prepared for the meeting, supported at the meeting, and encouraged to respond in writing with support, that whether the student is found responsible or not, they feel like they have received a fair and thorough process. This allows students to learn from the academic misconduct process. Here is another example of peer advocacy at work. Here's a one-pager of the appeals process, which some students navigate if they disagree with the initial academic misconduct case ruling. We're also available to help students brainstorm issues on an appeal and to review a written statement draft for this if it's helpful. Okay, peer advocacy is a bit difficult to imagine without a case study. We'll walk you through a quick workshop of what the typical academic misconduct case looks like. By a typical case, we mean the most common case that peer advocates help students navigate. Each case that peer advocacy works with has its own subjective, unique experience. However, for the sake of time and generalizability, we'll talk you through one that is statistically common in our program. Okay, I'll set the scene, but for this digital run-through, each of our presenters will take on the role of an individual involved in the academic misconduct process. For a real-time presentation, we hope to split into breakout rooms where the audience will adopt these roles. Here's an example of a common case that peer advocates help with. In this scenario, the case study will pertain to university academic misconduct violations 4.2.1a and 4.21b, cheating and plagiarism. A student within the College of Engineering has been accused of academic misconduct by a TA. The TA has notified the instructor, who has filed an electronic report through the university's online portal, alleging that the student used material off of Chegg to complete their assignment. With each individual acting as a character in this scenario, Shayla will be the student, Sarah will be the peer advocate, and Emma will be the college hearing officer. I'll narrate the scenes and stages of peer advocacy as we work through them to offer a little bit more context.
The first thing to note about this process is that it is daunting. Even college hearing officers admit that the email language in the allegation emails, such as "this is an official correspondence from the Student Conduct and Community Standards at Oregon State University," can feel formal and, for some students, hostile. We want to treat this process as a learning opportunity. On the bright side, the university features assistance such as the peer advocacy program on the same website that explains academic misconduct allegations. Most of our university's hearing officers link to the Office of Advocacy page and refer students to us. Amidst hours of coursework, homework obligations, working to make ends meet, and managing personal life and finances, the academic misconduct process can be overwhelming and it's intimidating. Many students, such as myself in this scenario, are worried that they will just be a case number in a system. However, support does exist, and peer advocacy is there for students to assure them that someone is on their team.
Now, here is what a typical first meeting between a peer advocate and a student would involve.
Hello, it's so nice to meet you, though I am sorry it is under such stressful circumstances. How are you feeling? I know this can seem overwhelming, so please feel free to offer me more context on your case. I'm here to listen, and then I can offer you an overview of the process if you'd like.
Yes, thank you. It's such a relief to talk through this with someone. I'm really stressed right now because this is the last thing I needed on top of everything else I have going on in my life. Basically, what's going on is that my TA and instructor accused me of cheating. They're saying that I cheated on assignment 3, and so they've already given me a 0 on it. Now my grade is at a C+, where before the assignment, it was at an A-. They said my assignment had formulas too similar to the equations on Chegg. I don't even go on Chegg. I can't afford stuff like that. Plus, I love this class, and the answer I had on my assignment is what we were taught in lecture. I'm not sure if I completely understand what's going on either.
Wow, I'm so sorry to hear about this stressful process and how stressful it's making you feel. I don't know exactly what you're going through, but I can imagine that this is the last thing you would want on your plate, and your frustrations are justified. Do you have any pressing questions at this time?
No, I don't.
At this point, the PA will walk the student through the academic misconduct process, the one-pager that we just went over together. The PA will offer to attend the hearing meeting with a student. If the student accepts, the PA will discuss their role at the meeting. PAs take notes and ask clarifying questions, questions that the student and the PA agree upon prior to entering the hearing. The PA ensures that the college hearing officer offers all cases the same amount of information and communication of their rights.
As the hearing officer, I am to be a neutral moderator of this process. I elaborate on the allegations and discuss the evidence that I've received from the instructor's report. Then I offer the student an opportunity to make their side of the case. The student can do so during the hearing or later via a written statement. Upon receiving their side, I deliberate on the case and determine whether or not the student is found responsible or not responsible based on the preponderance of evidence. Hearing officers do not use terminology such as guilty or not guilty because they're aware of the connotations associated with the word in larger societal systems. Rather, they treat this as a learning experience for the student. I check with the student and peer advocate throughout the hearing meeting to ensure that I'm communicating in a concise and tangible way.
If need be, as a PA, I'll request a private conversation or breakout room with my peer to discuss how they are feeling during the meeting, if they are confused, or if they have any clarifying questions they'd like to ask me. Students typically elect for a written statement versus the verbal, in-the-moment elaboration of their story. After the conclusion of the meeting, I send the notes from the meeting to the student and offer time and resources to work through the statement together. If the student sends me drafts, I offer feedback accordingly.
After the student submits their statement, the peer advocate's main active role in the case has come to an end. Now they just wait to hear from the student and see if there are ways to continue support. If, for example, the student is found responsible for the academic misconduct allegation, peer advocates offer assistance to navigating the appeals process. Now, let's take a look at our peer advocacy data.
Our office handles around 300 cases a year. Of these cases, about 100 of them are academic misconduct, and around 50 of those qualify for a peer advocate. What we've shared with you so far is what our peer advocates do on a day-to-day basis, but now we want to show you the big picture of what we do with our work. And to do that, we must explore our data. Data is the core of all our work within this office. To collect data, we have to know what we want to track and how we want to track it. During the start of COVID-19, we had the unique opportunity to improve the way we track our data. This allowed us to develop the new system in which we allow students to schedule an appointment through filling out the form that you see here. Through this change, we have been able to think about the importance of each question that we ask students, and in doing so, have found this system which allows us to only collect meaningful data while also respecting students' privacy and allowing them to choose whether or not to share certain details with us, such as their race, ethnicity, and pronouns. This data is collected through Acuity and then manually transferred into Access, where we can analyze it further. Through this analysis, our data informs us how to improve our marketing efforts, allowing us to determine how to better reach different populations at the university, as well as it helps us target our policy work so that we can report our findings to admin and develop methods of helping students that are disproportionately affected by the academic misconduct process. Here's an example of our data at work. Through our data, we were able to identify that 58% of academic misconduct cases that come to our office involve international students, while international students only represent about 11 to 12% of the students at this university. Now, this is not to say that international students cheat more or even that the university is targeting these students. We recognize that this is a complex issue with a complex set of determinants that explain why international students show up in data more. We do know that this shows a clear disproportionate impact in which you can predict certain outcomes based on the type of people that are involved in these cases. Our task is to use this data to try to decrease this disproportionate impact, and we tackle it in two different approaches. The first of these approaches involves our policy work. And looking into this statistic, we were able to adjust our advocacy to an educational platform in which we present all the different types of misconduct and the rights outlined in the Student Bill of Rights directly to students. This creates a space in which students can learn and ask questions. In this way, we attempt to provide clear and transparent communication with students so that they can do the same with us. The second approach that we took to addressing this disparity was to use our marketing efforts to develop an international advocacy program within our office. Through this program, international students are able to visit the website that you see below and contact us to ask any questions they may have, whether it be about classes, Corvallis, or any resources they might need. These questions are sent to an email that is run by around 1 to 2 students within our office. What we found from offering this resource is that we have the capability of offering a unique service to our international students. And this is just one tier of our marketing efforts that span through our office.
Now that we have discussed data and peer advocacy, we will get into the marketing component. Marketing is important because it builds brand awareness and communicates our legitimacy of helping students. Social media is very accessible, so this provides students a way to engage with us and get the assistance that they need. We're also able to use targeted posts to support and reach out to underrepresented communities. This allows students to access peer advocacy resources wherever they are. So ECCD stands for Equity-Centered Community Design. This is a student-led initiative to apply the ECCD model within policy advocacy programs. Similar to international advocacy, ECCD is another initiative we strive to apply to peer advocacy. As seen here, the ECCD model contains 6 main components. The first component is defining and assessing community needs. The best way to benefit the community is to assess their needs and goals. Hearing the community's voices is crucial to prioritizing needs, and making a significant impact. The second component is building humility and empathy. Empathy is a huge aspect of building effective relationships with others. With that being said, humility is also important because it allows for the acknowledgement of not knowing and working to learn. The third component is ideating approaches. This is basically the process of brainstorming and finding a plethora of approaches to the topic being focused on. The first step of this is having a clearly defined problem definition and target audience. The fourth component is rapid prototyping. This is the process of taking action on the ideas created from the ideating approaches component. This is where the planning, storyboarding, and building of these ideas occurs. The fifth component is inviting diverse co-creators. This allows for a diverse range of ideas to be brought together. Diverse co-creators also bring different perspectives, experiences, goals, and priorities. A variety of voices are then heard and incorporated. The sixth and final component is testing and learning. This is the process of others testing and the prototypes created in the rapid prototyping stage. Testing allows for collecting feedback and making changes accordingly. So now that we know more about the ECCD model, why is it beneficial? The ECCD model introduces a unique and effective perspective on problem solving in the community. It also focuses on the community's needs, culture, and systemic oppression to encourage equity-centered community design to sustain community health. So, as mentioned previously, peer advocacy is the core component of our roles. We work with advocacy, data, and marketing to improve peer advocacy. Peer advocacy greatly benefits the academic community and should be implemented when possible. So, how can you do this? Start with a problem. This could be academic misconduct, for example. Next, build a student community and set up student funding. Funding can be as modest as $20,000 in student salary. Then, develop a student training program. Our training program is a great example and can be borrowed. Then, try it out. Meet with the student community and see what happens. Then gather data to see what works and what doesn't. Lastly, use marketing techniques to increase outreach. Thank you all for listening.